Welcome to the data analysis of Slapball Game 1 of Captain's League 2. I'm going to leave the actual game in the description below. So if you want to check it out before we talk hard stats, please do. I'm not going to have any clips. It's their YouTube video. Please check it out. But I did keep track of major stats so I can kind of do this post-game analysis and award a MVP and kind of just talk about strategy. It's a new sport. It's a new game. It's a lot of fun. It's really exciting. So let's get into it by talking about what generally Slapball is. So pretty much this black area is the slap area. The idea is that before you score, you have to slap the ball and bounce it in, more or less, right? You have this neutral area where you can throw from. You have this attack area that you can throw to the goal. However, you can't just walk into the attack area with the ball. You have to be standing here and then get past the ball. That's how you can be there. You have these shot squares where you can catch it and you have 3 seconds to shoot it or throw it around. So that kind of adds some more excitement. These green zones are defending zones and only one defender is allowed in each one. So obviously the goalie is allowed in this first square, but a defender is allowed in this triangle zone to try to help go back and forth. The attackers are not allowed in these green zones at all. However, they can go through what this is, the hallway. The hallway is a non-playable area. So once you enter the hallway, you have to get out of the hallway, and then you can do something. So the ball hits you while you're in the zone, dead ball, it's a turnover. So that's pretty much the basics. Watch the game. They go through it really well. So if you want to know more, if you need more clarity, go check it out. If you don't want to get spoiled, please click out of it now because we're going to start going through the stats and it's going to be heavy spoilers. Okay? This is your last warning. Let's get into it. So here are the stats. Also, I'm so sorry. The efficiency numbers are wrong. I apologize for that. I realized that while I was starting to put this together. So my bad. But all the other numbers are good. I'm 90% confident. I watched the game twice, so I'm pretty sure it's not wrong. Besides these manually calculated numbers. That is wrong. I messed up. It's Excel. Who cares? Anyways, so first off, the Reapers in yellow, they pass the ball a lot more, which I think is not really the statement that I would say that led to their success. However, numbers 00 and 21, Jack and John Boy's brother, both of them were the main attackers, and they were able to pass the ball around a lot more to look for good positions to attack. And I think that was a lot better when comparing to the Freezers. I think the Freezers, they had their playmaker 17 clearly passing a ball around, not the clear difference maker there. However, I think the difference maker is that the team wasn't really passing the ball. I feel like they were taking a lot of the looks that they were given, and I think Jolly was holding on to the ball too long. I think they need to pass the ball a little bit more, either to Jolly or to someone else to kind of get different looks and to change the flow of the game. I think Jolly became a little bit predictable, and it was hard for them to kind of start turning over points. I think on the Reaper side, Zoe was doing a really good job finding looks, but I think what really changed the game is when Jack stepped up and started doing these when he's kind of start taking the reins a little bit. So that was really good. That was a good observation that I saw from the stats. Let's look at the shot versus slap. So I should call these throws, not shots, but the Freezers took a lot more shots or throws than the Reapers, but the Reapers really did the opposite, obviously. I guess that was kind of redundant. But the Reapers, yellow, did 25 attempts, scored 11, and Freezers did 30 and only scored 9. So one was almost 30%, and the other one was almost 50%. So a pretty big disparity in terms of turning over attempts to points. And it seems like, in my opinion, watching the game, watching the flow of the game, slapping is vastly better to get points over throwing. And you can look at the statistic where you see number 31, which I think is arguably, he says he knows the game and he understands it. And I think getting 4 throwing points kind of maybe shows that he knows a thing or two what's going on in terms of positioning, how to get open. But when you're rocking 40% in terms of turnover rate, I don't know. It's tough to score throwing, but you were attempting quite a bit versus slapping, where he attempted 3 and scored once, right? So you're getting the same amount of turnover, but with less attempts. So I can't help to think, if you're like the Reapers and you instead started slapping more because you have Jack, who scored 3 out of 5. You have 21. Oh, sorry. Wrong statistic. Sorry. Looking at the wrong thing. Jack's scored 3 out of 5. That's the same, ironically. And then you have 21 that did 2 for 2. You have 77 who went 1 for 3. And then you had 45 who went 3 for 3. Like, that is ridiculous stats right there. And then you look at the Freezers teams, and they went 3-1. Oh, they went 1 for 3, 1 for 3, 2 for 3. It's just low attempts, but you're scoring pretty well, considering that you're throwing the ball 20 times, and you only scored 5 of those. So a quarter versus, what is this, 4 out of 9? I don't know. I would personally give slapping a lot more of your attention and try to base your game off of slaps a lot more, especially when 44 came to live at the back half. He was doing numbers. Now, the last one I really want to put, and this is kind of where we get into the MVP conversation, is saves. Both goalies made 8 saves, which I think is interesting because, A, number 11 was playing really far back on offense to protect the goal a lot of time. So the fact that 45 and 11 got the same amount of goals, and 45 was literally playing goal to goal in offense and defense is just absolutely absurd. Plus, the whole Reapers team was able to get quite a few saves where only 31 was able to get a save. So, I don't know. I don't know if defense is an option or if Reapers were able to be more aggressive and still try to protect their offense a lot better. Then if we look at assists, this is really kind of showing what the game was about. Zoe with 5, 77, and then Jack with 3. And then you look at the Reapers team, 3 for their playmaker and then 1 for 44 and 11. Not really too fantastic of a game, right? Like 5 out of 9. Not really good. 4 individual plays. I think the same for... No, it's 3 for Reapers to have individual plays. I think it could have been a lot better for everyone. Like, I think you could have had more assists, but some people just saw the gaps and took it, and it was really well. But I think the MVP should go to 77 with having 7 contribution, like 2 scores, 5 assists on the big 11 score box. Like, he did a lot of great stuff. He made 2 saves. He was constantly all over the place. He did have 4 turnovers, but this is being the first game that everyone got to watch in the Champions League. I think it's understandable that there's going to be pretty common mistakes. And this wasn't even detrimental to their loss, right? I think the Freezers had, 11 turnovers versus the 7. So the Freezers weren't really able to do something out of all those turnovers. So I don't know. So I think Freezers, 77 gets the MVP for this game, in my opinion, and it helps that he had the highest efficiency rate. I think that speaks numbers. I think it's really good, and it shows you a little bit. I know these numbers are off, so it's not completely truthfully, but yeah, false stat, still a high number. It's really good. So let's talk a little bit about their actual strategy now that we kind of talked about stats. So this is where we're going to get into the nitty gritty. So let's see how this goes. I would say Reapers ran a Y formation where they had a guard next to the goal. They had the setter just in the open territory, and then they had the 2 strikers just playing back in the far zone, and they're able to move around like freely. So here's a good visual, right? So 0-0 and 21, they're able to just stay in the back or go up in attack and help 77. This is generally how they played. Now, both sides can do the same thing where they can run up the sides and do some fun stuff, but this is just an example of what these 2 guys can do in a typical format. Because typically Jack would just run up, Zoe's running around trying to figure something out, and they can just pass the ball around, right? And I think that's what they did really well with this double attacker, is give them the ball and let them make the choices, right? And that clearly worked because they had a pretty good turnover rate in terms of attempts to scores. Zoe he's the MVP in my opinion, just based on stats. But when you watch him, he was very fluidic, right? He would run up to Jack and give him the ball, basically like calling shots, right? And he would just cover this whole area. It was really hard to determine what he was doing. And so I think the defense kind of just defaulted 1-1 and just kind of moved with him because it's just aggravating. Then you had the guard just guarding the goal at the whole time. Now let's talk about the freezers. Freezers ran what I like to call the R formation. So you had the guard by the goal. He was more utilizing the hallway than just waiting for a set. 17 was just doing exactly what Zoe was doing, just being the setter, guarding this open area. 11 was stand put. He was a sniper role through and through, just waiting to get shots on that goal. And 31 was their striker, very similar to 0-0 and 21. Like, he's free to move around the whole court, right? So here's the difference that I saw between 17 and 77, was he had a little bit more of a set pattern that he would do. And he would just test the waters and see what would happen and allow 31 to pick his battle. That's why I saw he tried to do a lot of pump fakes, and I think he was sort of stiff, and he wasn't really daring enough early on. That's my opinion. You have the sniper, of course, just trying to take a shot down lane. The attacker doing very similar, but he was by himself, so you can argue that he had more area to work with. But I just don't know. He got a lot of attempts in. I just don't know how effective it is. I want to see more games. And then you had 44, which here's my big pet peeve about 44 out of everyone that played this game, was I'm kind of upset with the freezer strategy. I think Reapers, they have a flaw in their strategy. Like, every strategy is going to have their flaws, where 45 will play goal to goal, right? I think that's something that's going to get really abused in future matches, especially the championship. But everyone else was able to play the game, and they all had the expectation to defend the goal. And I think that was great. I think this team, they said 11 was like, hey, I'm the goalie. I'm going to be the long-range sniper. I'll stay back here, which it's a strategy. It's fine. Like, whatever. 31's the main attacker. 17 is the main playmaker. But you can't have 44 you can't have 44 just be dead in the water, right? Which would have felt like the first half. It's either you give an important role on offense or you give an important role on defense, and then the other one doesn't matter. You can't just do both, where he just kind of stood around. And arguably, in the second half, they were getting really mad with 45 guarding their goal as a permanent, waiting striker. I forgot what it was, like a hitter, slapper, trying to get into the goal permanently. And so they just said 44 and 45 just had this mini battle towards the end of the game. And, like, that's good, right? That's a good way to use 44, is to try to take away that option while everyone else works. Maybe it could be better, but on the spur of the moment, that was good. And I think you should really give him a better role than just let's see what happens. I think that's where they kind of fell flat. And I think on offense, they just stole what 45 did. So I was very concerned going in what their actual conversation was about how to play, because it looks like 17-31 will just do the work, and then maybe 11 throws it, and 44 is just the wild card. I just don't think that's really good, because 11's always back, you're pretty much playing 2v4 most of the time, right? And I don't think shots are beneficial enough to have him permanently be there, right? I think you can send him in depending on what's going on, but you're going to have to send him more often than not, because I just don't think you're going to be able to get good enough looks to merit keeping him back permanently, right? So it's either utilize 44 more or get 11 in, but I think if you want to try to win, you're going to have to get them both in. Now, I will say this was a weaker team, in my opinion. I think freezers and breakdowns were tied for the weakest teams, in my opinion. And this is showing why, is I feel like you have two awkward players that you're trying to play around, and then the two people that are trying to be active are getting a little bit smothered because they're all the attention. With that being said, I'm not saying the Reapers are perfect. The 45 is going to be an issue, 100%. But what I want to see is 21 to kind of become more of a playmaker as well, right? I think you should not have 77 just be your setter the whole game. I think there should be a rotation system between you three where you guys take the ball and you be threats, right? Because I think all three of these guys have their own specialties that are going to make them nervous. So whenever you're carrying the ball for a long period of time, for a couple of seconds, you're going to stress them out, and these other guys can set up elsewhere. I think Jack was kind of playing around with it. I want to see 21 do it more, right? And I think that's how you can really improve the strategy. I think what they're doing with 45 is just resting him on offense, right? And then he runs back to defense. And I think that's perfectly fine, right? I think that's working with what you got. And I think how active do you want him is going to be more detrimental later on. So I can see why they're doing it. But those are just my opinions. Please let me know what you guys think. This is my first time doing something like this, so I'm going to try to cover all the games. So if you have any thoughts on how I can improve this, please let me know. Until next time, talk to you later. Peace.